continue to write your questions on your note card and pass them in. We'll start with some of the very first questions that were passed in so that we can get as many answered as possible. The first question was for Sam, and the question is, do you still have that number tattooed on your arm?
Thank you. Very good question. No, I do not have the number any longer. But I do have this scar on my arm where I did have the number, and I will tell you why I had that number removed. When I came to this country, I had nightmares very, very often. And when I lived already with this cousin of mine and his family, I mentioned it to him about the nightmares. He says, well, let me take you to my physician. Let's see what he's going to tell us. Maybe he'll give us an idea of what to do about it. Well, we did go to his physician, and he said, the first thing we ought to do is have that number removed. I'm really not certain that it helped me in any way, but that's when I had my number removed.
We're sorting questions to try to get the ones that come up the most often. Gentlemen, this is for all three of you. Thank you so much for opening my eyes. I have so much respect for all three of you. You are heroes and inspirations to us. It's a thank you rather than a question. I think this is for you, Philip. What things can a student do, or actually it could be for any of you, for not making the situation again? And what are you worried about in the new generation?
First of all, I would like to say that I think it's almost the duty of everybody of us to do something against it. I consider it as self-evident. So I'm no hero at all. I'm just a normal guy like you, young, and try to improve our future. So first of all, I think what is very important is that we should always have our eyes open. We should deal with the history and learn from it to compare with our present. And, you're at school, and I bet that you have been confronted with racism or any forms of that, right? So I think everybody has his own way to deal with that. But we can definitely do something against it by try to solve conflicts, or to tell those guys that they're doing something wrong. That is small things. And of course, it can apply to an organization. You can go abroad when you're older to do something like I do. So it's possible for everybody. And worried about the new generation? The Holocaust happened in Germany. And you think that today there is no form of racism anymore, there is no form of discrimination. But I tell you that in the future, there will always be a form of racism. There will always be a form of anti-Semitism. So we always have to watch out. So we have to be careful because there will never be a guarantee that something like that happens again.
I think this is for you, Fritz. Were you at school when Hitler came to power? If so, did your non-Jewish friends turn against you? Were there other Jews in your town before the Austrians came? And why didn't your family go with the Austrian family into Switzerland?
That's quite a few questions there rolled together. Yes, I was going to school until Kristallnacht, until 1938, November 1938, when the synagogue was blown up and when my father and 30,000 men were arrested for being Jews. There was also a law passed at that time that Jewish children could not visit public schools anymore. Constance was an exception. It was so different from most of the other towns in Germany. Yes, we had our SS squad, we had the Gestapo, we had a Nazi mayor, but the people generally did not participate in the Nazi activities any more than they had to. And the kids I went to school with never insulted me, never made any anti-Semitic remarks. The teachers were very decent. This was the exception. The general rule, the more typical case, in most towns in Germany, Jewish kids had to drop out of school very early because they were ridiculed by their teachers because of their religion. They were beaten up on their way home from school by the other kids. This was a more typical example in Germany. In Constance, it was not nearly that bad. Why didn't we cross the border along with the Austrians that we smuggled across? Well, you may remember the border was closed in August of 1938, so it was just about impossible to cross over after that. Before that, before Kristallnacht actually, there had not been any violence in Constance, none. There was all kinds of economic hardship and tremendous amount of psychological hardship, propaganda, but no violence. So we knew that any day we would get permission to go to the United States. We did not know that we were going to have to wait so long. And if we had left the country, we would have lost our place in line. So we decided, my parents decided, that we would not cross the border at this time. There didn't seem to be any strong reason for escaping because there hadn't been any violence. Now, if someone had told my parents, hey, in 3 years there's going to be gas chambers and mass killings of the Jews by the millions, first thing my parents would have said was, it's impossible, you're out of your mind. This could not happen in Germany. Germany is a civilized country. The people are good people. They would not permit that sort of thing to happen. If they had been persuaded that they were in danger, that just in 3 years there would be these killings, if they had understood this, we would have been the first ones across that creek. But, people did what they thought was right, and sometimes it worked out, and sometimes it didn't.
Sam, I think the next question is for you. It's about the suicides you talked about in Auschwitz. What did you think about the suicidal people? Did you understand their reasons? And this is a very personal question. Did you ever consider this option?
First of all, I gave it some thought once in a while, but I was not really serious about it because I felt that I must be strong enough and survive, hoping that I will again be with my family. As far as the people that did do it, that did commit suicide, as I told you earlier, I don't believe we felt bad even seeing all those things going on, because we thought that eventually this is going to happen to all of us anyhow, and at least those people would no longer have to suffer.
This is for both Fritz and Sam, and there are like 5 or 6 questions that are all about the same, so I'm going to try to roll them together. The questions that came up is, with everything that you went through, the deprivation, the mistreatment, seeing the death, learning about families being destroyed, how do you cope with those memories?
Well, first of all, I must tell you that I have absolutely